Boom. That's
Live.
it. That's how we're on. That's it.
There it is.
Yeah.
Cute.
No, I mean, thank you guys for coming. You guys are probably the first official guest. We've recorded a couple of them with the guys. So we've done a couple of boys pods, but this is kind of like the first one of many, I hope. This is the Mari experience, right? Try to be as original as possible. I mean, why reinvent the wheel? So the Mari experience, we're trying to speak to professionals that are in the industry or out of the industry, in the El Paso market or any other market that we're going to be going to, and we just want to know what's up. Who are you? What do you do? We want to take off that stigma of who is a loan officer, who is a realtor, who is like, a lot of people don't know who we are or what we do, and I want to introduce that to just the general public, you know. So, gentlemen, tell us who wants to go first. Who are you? What do you do?
Well, let's destigmatize the industry, shall we? Well, my name is Adam Hagan. I'm the Vice President of Loan Originations at Rocky Mountain Mortgage Company. Obviously, Mario, you know that. I've known you for many years. It's a privilege to be here, and I'm looking very much forward to just chewing the fat, man, getting through it, and helping pull back the curtain a little bit on how the machines operate and what's what in the industry. So awesome. I'm joined by a very skilled colleague over here. I'll let him introduce himself.
Mario, as you know, my name is Cesar Garcia. I am the Sales and Marketing Manager over at Rocky Mountain Mortgage Company, primarily out of our Sunland Park location. You're one of the builders that actually got us out to that New Mexico area. We want to make sure that we support all of our builders equally and cater to you guys by opening branches in a different state for you guys. That's
awesome. And like I said, I wanted to thank you guys for coming on here. Thank you for the awesome introductions. When you say, what is it that you do? I mean, you hear that question a lot. What do you do? So, Cesar, tell me a little bit about what you do as the sales and marketing manager for Rocky Mountain Mortgage. What is it that your job entails, or what's your primary roles as a sales and marketing manager?
So specifically, my job is more of a support role. I still actively originate, but my job is a support role for not only Adam, but for the team. Make sure that we have all the opportunities such as this today to put the name out, Rocky Mountain Mortgage Company, make sure everybody, keeps us on top of their mind and that they utilize our services, hosting realtor tours, coming and doing these podcasts, and making sure that our team is actively present in the community and that everybody understands that not only are we available to you guys, but we're wanting to make sure that we can service you, your customers, and the community as a whole. So I'm an extension of Adam when it comes to servicing our realtor partners, and an extension of the loan officers to make sure that they have the support that they need to go out and market themselves and be present in front of our team.
Awesome. How long have you been with Rocky Mountain?
So I've been with Rocky Mountain Mortgage Company. It's been 7 years this year, but I've been licensed a little bit over 10 years, and I've been in the industry for 15 years now.
15 years. That's
been a minute.
I like it when you say that. That makes me feel young.
Been a minute.
Actually, Cesar and I go way back into our prior to me representing Point Homes and being a broker. I met Cesar as he was a marketing manager for one of the bigger builders here in El Paso, Saratoga Homes, and Cesar was already a tenured agent there. I think he was already licensed. Yeah. I started there 2015, I think. 2015 or 14.
And I was already 6 years in.
And Cesar was already 6 or 7 years in.
Yeah.
And he had a wealth of knowledge, and he would actually take the newer agents under their wing sometimes. But it was a little bit of a Shark Tank there.
Cutthroat.
Very cutthroat. I mean, and it was a good training ground for what I believe some of the better agents in El Paso, some of the larger, whether it be brokerages or builder accounts, are still, they come cut from that particular cloth.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing this, Adam?
Man, 10 years. 10 years. It was 10 years in March for me. And it has been, I started originating on the front line, and I did that for, I guess 6 years. And so I'm going on 4 years now running the sales team.
Okay.
And in so much as I'm running a sales team, you ask kind of what we do. I lovingly will say that I'm a cat herder because I have a wonderful team. Don't take that as a jab at anybody. I love my team. I've got some very motivated salespeople out there. But you work with salespeople yourself. It's difficult to keep type A's flying in formation sometimes, and that presented a unique challenge that I had to step into, having never managed any people, to manage that type of a group of people. And so that's been a really great learning curve, but it's been really good just in terms of my own individual professional development.
Yeah, of course. And of course with the Hagan last name at Rocky Mountain Mortgage, I'm sure that carries a lot of weight around there. Did you see that as a challenge going in, or was that?
Oh, certainly. Yeah. Anytime you walk in with something like that, you're looking at very large shoes to fill. You're looking at expectations to meet. And you just get up and come in every day hoping you don't fall flat on your face. And
of course, I know what the Hagan, and so does Cesar. We know what the Hagan last name is or means, right? But tell us, what is that? Why is that important at Rocky Mountain Mortgage, for instance? What is?
Well, I mean, you look back at the founding of our company back in 1985, and it started originally with Harold Hahn, who is Justin Hahn's father, and they weren't in business for 3 months before they brought my dad in, Bill Hagan, and he was there for the better part of 35 years before he retired. Gosh, it's been a couple of years ago now. But anytime you walk in and you've got that founder kind of association in your last name, there's interesting landmines to step around.
Of course. Yeah. And that's exactly why I asked that question. Going into some people are thinking, this guy's going to probably take it for granted or something along those lines.
That's a good point, Mario, and I'm thankful you brought that up because, one thing that has always been, center focus in my mind as I've stepped into that role of leading the sales team is that, I live and die with them. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I work for them. And it's my job to make sure that they're teed up for success every day, that I'm removing obstacles on the back end that might impede them from being the best producers that they can be. And so that's kind of been my focus coming into that, not to mention customer service, dealing with our clients that from time to time find their way to me. And, ideally that doesn't happen very often. Usually when they get to me, something's gone off the skids, but it's usually pretty easy to get the ship righted again and, get them to the closing table and keep them happy.
Of course.
And then I will add, I don't want to interrupt you, but when Adam brought me on to really, like I said, to be an extension of him, he's a little humble in his approach and what he does for the sales team. I mean, what comes down the pike to us as loan officers, by the time it makes it through Adam, he's already put on a battle to make sure that whatever, the tippity top wants done, he's already kind of massaged that down to a realistic expectation that won't prevent us from doing our job. So really, I mean, I've told Adam and I've told the team a couple of different times, but he really puts on a good fight for us and for all our partners around because he's originated himself and he understands this part of the job. And I mean, I'll add, everyone in our management and in our, from VPs to the top, everyone's originated. So really right now we have the inmates running the asylum, which creates a really good environment because, everybody up here has originated. So we really have a culture of understanding our partners and our community to better serve them.
Yeah. When you say originated, what exactly does that mean, originated?
Someone that's taken an application, someone that's met with the customers, done, pulled the credit, looked at the debt to income, and they've done
trench warfare.
Yeah. So everyone, from Adam, Justin, and Sandra, and down to myself, we've all been part of the originations department. We've all dealt with customers, realtors, at different extents. I mean, we have underwriting experience, processing experience, origination experience. So we understand very well what it takes to get a loan done and to keep all of our partners happy.
Yeah. And then right now you said talking to clients. Are you still talking to the when you say clients, is your particular client the agent or the customer itself? Who do you, Adam, who do you primarily speak to when it comes to those phone calls that are being made to you?
Sure, full spectrum, Mario. It can be an agent, it can be a consumer.
Okay.
It's typically a loan officer, ideally. I want a member of my team bringing issues to me to help them solve it, because ideally, you should go from start to finish and not even know who I am,
Okay.
in my opinion. Because I want to see my team taking such good care of that consumer, making sure that agent's getting paid at the end of the day, that no one thinks that they need to ask for anybody like me. But when it shows up, man, it's my job, number one, to make sure that client or that agent feels heard, feels understood, and that they get the response that's going to best fit, and solve the problem that they've come to me with. And that can run from a wide range of little things, but nothing usually so big we can't solve it.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, right now, when you say problems and some things need to be, I like to steer into the skid, right? Which is what's going on right now with interest rates, what's going on with mortgage rates. Does it matter who you're getting your message from? That's another reason why this was originated, because I feel like it matters who you're getting your message from. Right now, there's a lot of both agents and loan officers telling people to run for the doors, telling people to not do something. And of course, at the end of the day, it's whoever's purchasing or whoever's making the decision. They're going to make the final decision, right? But I really do believe that who you're hearing the message from will definitely help you go one way or another, whether you're hearing the right message. And of course, there's some messages that I may not consider right, and there's some messages that I may consider correct messages, right? But what do you guys think is going on right now with the interest rates, aside from that? I want to avoid the market's hot, the interest rates are high.
Yeah.
What does that mean to someone who is looking to buy their first home? Does that mean, should I wait another 10 years? Does that mean, should I go and waste my money on rent? What does that mean? The market? Oops.
Sure.
I mean,
well, in order to, I think, really address that well, we need to kind of take a few steps back and look what happened to the market coming out of COVID. You saw a huge increase for demand in single-family housing, but at the same time, you were seeing constraints in terms of supply and labor. This all led to a dramatic increase in housing prices, which is a major gauge of core inflation, which is what the Fed watches. I mean, you had a savagely unhealthy housing market for a while there. I mean, anytime you've got 12 offers on one resale, something's wrong,
Yeah.
So obviously the Fed, in an effort to cool that off, engaged in the most aggressive interest rate raising campaign that this country had seen in 40 years.
okay.
And so was it economically necessary? I mean, clearly smarter people than me probably thought so. And I have a hard time disagreeing with what they've done. I don't like it because it's really curtailed a lot of the great transactions that we were seeing there for a while. It was great. But it needed to be done, because now we're finally starting to see days on market kind of come back to what's a normal number. And in terms of interest rates, and should we run for the door, to your point, no, because I'll tell you what, interest rates can change and interest rates can go down and pull back. And in fact, some people are thinking early next year we might start seeing a pullback on rates. But one thing that's probably not going to change is the upward trajectory of prices. And you see that every day. And so whether you're, buying today at a 6.5 rate and refinancing in 2 years to a 4 or 5, that price, that house, if you waited, I mean, it's just going to cost you more in 2 years. So I mean, I would encourage consumers not to head for the door, but, make sure that you're engaging the services of an expert in the industry, like somebody from Mareg or somebody from Rocky, that can kind of help guide you through the landmines.
Yeah, and I mean, to add to that, you really don't want to miss out on the equity that's been built over long periods of time. I mean, interest rates, as Adam said, are temporary and they will fluctuate over time. I think one thing that's specific to our market here in El Paso, and that's the southwest region of the state, is that it's always been very resilient. We've always had an ongoing growth economically from 2008 and 2009, when we were experiencing those market crashes, when I had started working at a call center and I was getting a new script every 2 days because rates were historically low at a 6%, December of 2008, and everybody was losing their minds. And then every week it just got lower till I was calling consumers on the phone offering 3.25% interest rates, and people were losing their minds. And I think, at a national level, people were very scared and frightened as to what was going to happen with the housing market. But here, we've always been very insulated with a pretty heavy military presence with our sister cities in Las Cruces and in Juarez, and with a big uprising in employment in places like Odessa, Midland, Lubbock. So this town and this community has been very resilient in that regard, and we've been able to take advantage of rates in the 3s and 3.25% for over 14 years. I mean, the rates that we're looking at now are unprecedented, but it's not where they should.
Yeah.
It's not out of the norm. I think we just got too used to those rates being low, but we can't get our eye off the mark here. Is purchasing a home and living that American dream is building equity over time, and it's our responsibility to educate those consumers that they do have options. They can buy down the rate permanently. They can finance for 15 years, 20 years. If they're really interested in paying off that home and not paying a lot of interest, well, let's look at financing for a lower term, or look at different financing options. And remind them that once they're in that home, all they're doing is building equity over time, and they could always sell that home and cash in on that equity to buy the next one, or refinance and maintain that equity, because we know Point and Mareg are doing a good job with their values and building in the right subdivisions to making sure that those homes will continue to appreciate over time.
Yeah. And just to touch base a little bit on what you're saying with the Point in Mareg, myself as a consumer, going into COVID, I was like, it started getting really good for real estate agents.
Yeah.
Okay. And instead of being one of those, hey, I'm going to go buy myself a Mercedes and I'm going to go buy myself some red bottoms and post them on Instagram, I started buying houses from Point. Yep. And not only Point, I bought some from some other builders during COVID and before, a little bit before COVID, and now I'm doing the same thing. I did a blanket loan, doing a blanket loan for all the properties, and the amount of equity that I have is, it's over $1 million on the houses that I bought during that time. And if you were to ask me right now, what could I've done? What should I have done then? Just bought more. Yeah, really bought more, maybe less trap. And it really is a difference between taking an extra vacation or just really, I don't know.
Small sacrifice.
Exactly. Doing the small sacrifices right now, get into a home and enjoying it in the next 3-5 years where you start building some really good equity if you purchase the right home, which I think Point Homes is always the right one. But like I said, it's not exclusive to that. I bought other homes, resales, other builders, and that's what, like you said, building equity is what I think it's a lot about, Right now, us at Point Homes, we have builder contribution. A lot of people, I know that they're part of their advertising is, we'll give you these are our incentives. When we talk about incentives, what does the builder contribution mean to you guys on the lending side? So for the consumer that's watching that is on the fence, and we are saying, hey, we're going to cover your closing cost. How much does closing cost usually? Let's talk about a $275,000 home, right? What kind of closing costs, or what is a closing cost? What is a consumer just looking for a house? What are they looking to pay when it comes to closing on their home?
That's good. First, I want to make a slight differentiation between what we see as closing costs and what we would term in our industry as prepaid finance charges.
Okay.
Closing costs are any customary fees you're going to see any transaction anywhere when you're buying a home. These are title fees, these are loan origination fees, these are processing fees, doc prep fees, all these standard appraisal fee, credit report fee. You're going to see these pretty much standard anywhere you go. Those are all the people that like to middle into a transaction because there's an opportunity to wet their beak. Everybody's the godfather every time the real estate transaction shows up.
Yeah.
But then you've got your prepaid finance charges. These really represent more of like your homeowner's insurance that you would want to have and need to have to own that home in the first place, and then all your property taxes, insurance, escrows, so prepaid interest. These are really slightly different in so much as, well, I'm going to capitalize your escrow account. I'm basically handing you money.
Okay.
Right. So there's a little bit of a differentiation there. Those closing costs are going to go to a service provider. I'd say typically 2.5% to 3% of your loan amount is going to be where you want to be. I think 3 would really cover all of it.
And I think that's another thing that we see here locally in this market. We've I think builders here in town have really done a great job over the past, as long as I remember, in assisting the community and paying for closing costs. But I think that's just a component of our market. I mean, markets out in East Texas, Austin, San Antonio, Houston, this customary closing cost thing doesn't exist.
I know.
Most of these consumers coming in to purchase a home are having to cover their down payment if necessary, unless you're a veteran or utilizing a down payment assistance program. But these consumers are finding themselves having to pay closing costs. Here in El Paso, I think, like I said, most builders and brokers such as yourself have done a really great job in assisting the community with helping them pay for their closing costs, even though it's not a mandatory thing. And I think we have to really remind the community that this is a service that builders are going above and beyond by assisting the consumer to pay for most of their closing costs. 2.5% to 3% is going to cover those closing costs, and it's definitely going to assist them to get into that home. But ultimately, being the consumer, you're going to want to make that decision of, well, I can come in with my minimum down payment and not have to spend any money, or is it worth investing a little bit more to maybe buy down that rate or pay off mortgage insurance to get that payment where I need it to be to build equity over time. But to answer your original question, 2.5% to 3% on a $279,000 price point should cover most of those closing costs.
That should get you there. I would say, again, since we're talking about, educating consumers, educating even some industry professionals, read your sales contract.
Yeah.
That information is clearly spelled out in there, and then get with your loan officer and say, hey, this is what I'm getting. Is this going to do what I think it's going to do? Because, sometimes I feel like the guy from Princess Bride, you'll keep on using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means,
Yeah. And to your point, we just had a training yesterday with the agents, and we were talking about settlement and other expenses. And my response to, because what do we put there? Do we put 1%? Do we put 2%? I always tell them, reach out to your loan officer, ask them exactly what they want there, and then negotiate with the seller. The last thing you want to do is ask for less, and then your buyer has to come out of pocket with it. So I think everything is about, like you said, open communication, which I think is really, really good having with your loan officer. I always recommend, have a strong lender-partner relationship. Have a good lender-partner relationship where it's not just, hey, I'm going to call you on a Sunday, give me a pre-qualification letter. No, it's have a good relationship with them. Text each other every once in a while. Hey, what's up, man? How are you doing? I do it with Cesar all the time. Hey, just memes or stupid things, or sometimes it's industry-related things. And then on a Friday or Thursday, I'll get the rates. Hey, here are the rates for the weekend. And with that, the team is better prepared for the weekend, because typically the weekend is when people are out and about looking to, show the sister, show the aunt, show the other people. And being prepared with those rates for the weekend is always a really, really good tool. So having a good relationship with your loan officer, I think, is key for both the agents and even the consumers. Talking to someone like yourself and just knowing, hey, how's the market right now? Having coffee with X amount of loan officers per week, and how's the market here? What are you thinking about the market? And I think that's always good to continue educating the consumer. Just to go a little bit offline, what's kind of some of the craziest things you guys have seen originating where you're like, oh, this guy. I mean,
How much time do you got?
I mean,
Well, what's the time on the podcast?
Right?
That's right.
and this is open forum, so we have as much time as we want or as little time as we want. And if we need to bleep anything else, no. But really, like, what is something that you're like, oh, all right?
I think one thing that before I answer that, it's important to understand that, you know, us as originators, we don't do anything specific or magical. Our job is to translate this consumer story at 3 different levels: credit, assets, which is money for down, or unemployment. And we take those 3 components and we have to be able to translate that to the ability to repay this loan, the ability to purchase. So at no point, you know, do we want to make it impossible for a consumer to buy a home, but we do have regulations and conditions and underwriters that we have to abide by. But it really comes down to those 3 things: credit, assets, and income. And those are the big ones that we harp on, and all the guidelines are just a trickle down of those 3 main components. But, you know, one of those things changed throughout the process. Like I had a customer at one point that was like, yeah, man, I'm going to my closing right now. I just have to go schedule the delivery for my furniture. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, you can't finance any furniture. Did you buy it cash? And it's like, no, it's for my mother-in-law. And I'm like, sweet, perfect. You didn't buy any furniture? Well, it's for her, but I financed it. And I'm like, dude, no, like, that's still your furniture. It's under your name. So, I mean, that affects credit, income, or assets. So those are the big ones where you're like, God, like, you know, it's for my mother-in-law, but you're financing it, you know?
Yeah.
Or the typical, I co-signed for my son, but he's paying for it. It's like, yeah, but your son's on your account. And you're like,
You're on the hook now with
you're on the
Junior.
hook, yeah. Like he's an admin to my Bank of America, and we make the payments out of that account. It's like, oh God.
You know, the funny thing is we as loan officers, and that's one of the most important things we do is we ask a lot of questions. I mean, I used to joke that, you know, what do you do for a living? I give financial enemas. I mean, I'm gonna crawl up in there and I'm gonna find out what's going on. But, you know, it's all about asking the right questions because no 2 consumers are in the same situation. And so in the asking, you know, it's funny where you think you're safe and you really realize later you stopped short and should have asked one more question. It happened to another loan officer when I was still originating, but he had somebody who he had asked them, do you have your money for closing? And he said, yes, I do. And he said, it's going to be this much. You have this much? I sure do.
In the bank.
He forgot to ask if it was in a bank account. It was cash. It was cash on hand. And for those of you that don't know, lending guidelines are not very forgiving to cash on hand. So my best advice is for you, if you're sitting on a mattress full of money or it's all in your gun safe, get that into a bank 2 months before you want to come talk to us.
Yeah.
Or at least 2 months before you close.
Yeah.
Well, let's be specific in the bank because we had another originator that I think you and I both know this story, where the originator asked the borrower, like, hey, are the funds in the bank? And the buyer said, yeah, already in the bank, ready for closing. So closing time comes around and the originator says, I need your bank statements to see the money in the bank. Oh, well, they're not in statements. It's in a safety deposit box down at the bank.
It's in the bank.
Hey,
Yeah,
it's in the
it's in the bank.
Technicalities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those cash is a big one. I mean, there's you know, I just had one where it's like, well, where did this money come from? Well, it's my money, and I'm like, well, I'm glad you say that. But our job as originators is, you know, the conversations we have with consumers and with realtors, we have to be able to translate that to black and white documentation. Like, you can give me the best sob story you want, but if I can't prove it on paper, there's not much I can do.
Doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist. Yeah.
And I with Cesar, I have 2 very particular transactions that stand out, and I want to say, like, the really good ones, the really bad ones, right? We're still at
Bleep that out.
The highlight reel.
so we were still at Saratoga, and these were, I remember the Bishop family. It was a Saturday. Cesar loaned at them on a Saturday because there was no loan officers, but the good thing about it is he had his license.
Yeah.
Every once in a while it comes up on my Facebook as a story or a memory, and it's like me walking all youngster to Cesar, and Cesar's like taking their application, and we closed the loan like in 8 days. So that's like a really, really good what's it called?
It's about as fast as you can do it.
Yeah,
legally
that's a good win story, right? But then we had this other guy who lost his job from the closing table to coming to pick up his keys here at Point Homes. I don't know if you did, because we did a verbal VOE.
Oh man, that's tragic.
For verification of employee, just that final time that you call the employer, hey, is
I think he found out from us.
Yeah, he found out through us.
Yeah.
So, hey, is this guy still working there? And it was like, who? Say,
ouch.
Who? And when he got here, Cesar calls me like 3 or 4 times. Hey, do not give him the keys. Do not give him the keys. I'm like, why? What's going on? He doesn't have a job. I was like, what?
And by the way, can you let him know?
Right? Yeah. And the guy, he's like, no, just call my other friend. Don't call my company for verification. Call my friend. This is his number. Call him. And Cesar's like, I can't do that. Like, we have to call the company.
Ouch.
So literally, from the time he closed and signed off on the documents to the time he got here, he lost his job. So that's how quickly things change in this business, you know. So that's why I I always recommend talking to a loan officer first. You know, because whenever I get any lender questions, not real estate questions, any lending questions, my answer is always, you know what? I have a great loan officer that can definitely assist you with that. I have a great loan officer that can answer that question for you. I'm not the agent that tries or pretends to know it all, and I know a little bit more than most, but even then, hey, you know what? Let me get you with the loan officer that can give you those answers. And whatever the loan officer recommends, that's what we're going to go with. You know, I think that's the best. What do you think about getting pre-qualified before going to look at homes?
Yeah, I mean, I think you bring up a good point. You know, just to add to that, it's all about having that good relationship with a loan officer, with a real estate agent professional, where, you know, I'm not sitting here trying to walk a consumer through spray foam insulation or how far apart those 2x4s should be in a home. You know, I defer that to you. And at the same token, you should be able to trust us as professionals or whoever you work with to be able to explain the loan estimate and the closing costs and the monthly payment. And that's really a great tool to defer to the professional. You know, we need homeowners insurance for all these transactions. And at no point do Adam and I sit down and explain an insurance policy. We'll let the insurance agent do that. But yeah, getting pre-approved, going back to your point, is huge before shopping for a home. Because you want to make sure that you understand your finances, what it's going to cost you to get into the home, and what you can qualify for. You know, sometimes you can walk into a home, fall in love, and then find out it's a payment out of your budget, and all of a sudden we're like, well, how do we get you into that home? Well, you're gonna have to pay that monthly payment. There's no, you know, purchasing a home isn't like when you go out and purchase a car. And all disrespect to my car dealers, but we're not going to go back to the manager's office and work a magic deal for you and mess with these numbers.
If you sign on this paper, are you committed to purchasing the house?
Yeah, no. There isn't any magic that happens. You know, that monthly payment is a component of how much you're financing, which is the component of the price and your down payment and the interest rate. Mm-hmm. That's it. There isn't. We can't talk to some guy in the back office to make that payment sweeter for you.
Math is a very unforgiving mistress.
Dude, there's no magic behind that. So making sure you're pre-approved not only guarantees that you're going to be able to get into that home, but also sets up the right expectations for you as a consumer to know what that monthly payment is. And when you walk into that home and finally fall in love with that dream home, either at Point or with Mareg, you're not going to be surprised by a payment that wasn't what you were expecting.
That's right. And let me just say, as a husband, you do not want your wife falling in love with a house that you can't deliver on.
Exactly.
That's a non-starter right there. And I will say from experience, my most successful clients always began in the loan officer's office. They were always there saying, okay, either number one, my favorites were the ones who'd already worked out their budget and they knew what payment they needed to be at. And then we'd back into based on how much they could put down and what the rates were at, we'd back into how much. This is your sales price. Go find it. Go get it. Or at least at the bare minimum came in to say, okay, max me out. How high can we fly? And then we send them out with a real estate professional who shows them all the houses, and they can fall in love with something that they can actually deliver on. Because you don't want to be, on the couch in the small house.
Of course.
Yeah.
No, and to not necessarily go too far off from that particular subject, and we're all friends with different, just like I'm friends with different loan officers in the industry and different
Shame on
companies.
you.
I know.
Shame on you, Mario.
Hey, like, just like you guys are friends. Where were you earlier today?
I was,
Just like you guys are all friends with different lending companies. How does it feel? And I would imagine that it feels pretty good. But a lot of the times when agents, personally, when I was listing a home and I get a pre-qualification letter from Rocky versus someone else, I know this client is not necessarily going to be on the edge and has to, no, don't worry, they're going to give up a kidney at closing, so they're going to be good. And like I said, there is a lending, I think there's a loan for everyone out there, and there's a lender for it, right? But how does that make you guys, as Rocky, how does that make you feel knowing that whenever you get a Rocky pre-qual, you know that client is pretty much, that's what they qualify for. They're not going to be stretched to their max, and they're not going to have to, pay XYZ at closing or anything like that. Does that make you feel some sort of way in the industry here in El Paso?
Oh yeah, I think that's a point of pride, and I'm not huge on pride, but that is something that I think we as an organization do pride ourselves on, is that pre-approval letter, that pre-qualification letter actually means something, and you can take it to the bank quite literally.
Literally.
So yeah, definitely. And there's been some movements underfoot to try and maybe undermine that by just saying, hey, well, can you just condition the bejeezers out of that thing? And it's like, and then who are you going to point at when we get there and they didn't do all the things?
Yeah,
you're going to point at me.
So
I'm not doing. Yeah, that's right. Who's going to talk to Carlos in that situation? And I've been on the receiving end of that phone call before, and that is a challenge to make sure that you talk them off the ledge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, as a loan originator at Rocky, I think that carries a certain amount of weight. Those pre-approval letters, we don't take those lightly, because we know that starts a chain reaction. If you're building a home, you got to get that pre-approval letter, and you don't want to build a home on someone that doesn't qualify. And I think for us specifically, because a vast majority of our business is on the new construction side, even though we're happy to do resales across both Texas and New Mexico, but most of our business is from our builders. We want to make sure that we deliver that service, where if we're going to issue out a pre-approval letter, that pre-approval letter is going to be just as good today as it will be in a year, because we know it might take you that long to build that home, hopefully 8 or 9 months, but we're going to be ready. We're not going to max out that pre-approval letter in high hopes that maybe they'll be ready. Yeah. We want to make sure that if you get a pre-approval letter today, it's valid today, and it's not going to be something that, well, maybe if they pay off some accounts. Yeah. Well, maybe if they get a cosigner. I mean, we're happy to pay that maybe game, but that maybe game doesn't get your bills paid. And I think that's for you as realtors and for the community to understand that if we're going to issue out a pre-approval letter, it's going to mean something, and you're going to get into that home. There's going to be no ands, if, or buts about it.
Because they're not Uber drivers.
Yeah.
They want to know that they're out there to earn a commission.
Yeah, exactly.
That's very important. And I would go one step further also, especially to tout my team, because I love them and they're all excellent professionals. It's not just that I put Rocky's logo on the letter and it should mean something. It does, but it means a lot because of the individual originator's name that's on that piece of paper, and they all carry that around with them. That's their name out there. Yeah. So
true. And just to touch base on something that you said, New Mexico, that's a big right now, especially around here. Carlos and I are working some deals on some commercial stuff, so we can go over there and plant our flag. And earlier you mentioned your Santa Teresa office. Is that?
Yeah.
What are you guys doing in New Mexico? What I know, El Paso, Rocky is rocking, but in New Mexico, what is Rocky Mountain Mortgage doing?
Man, well, I mean, you look at what's happening in that economy. Sunland Park, Santa Teresa, that land bridge out there is poised to really bring a whole new slew of industrial jobs out there to that zone. So there's houses coming up left and right out there. I think points building in Rancho, and
we just did in Las Cruces. We have a couple of different subdivisions. So New Mexico is definitely going to be a big.
It's hot, and property taxes are a huge play out there. If you're because let's all face it, housing affordability is an issue right now. going into a state with property taxes that are half of what they are in El Paso County, it's a big boost. It really helps you take that dollar a lot further.
Yeah, definitely. And in regards to the Las Cruces market, is that something that you guys are interested in? Is that something you guys can you work a Las Cruces deal?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
do. So
Anywhere in the state of Texas or New Mexico. I mean,
Okay.
we might not have a physical presence, but we're organizationally and almost all individually licensed in both states.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And we're excited for you guys to start planting your flag out there, so you
Yes.
can have us out on the weekends and
Yeah, so
serve
right.
customers out
we're
there.
over in Lenox Estates, which is right off of I-25, and I mean it's right on the interstate. We're going to be in Red Hawk Estates, which a couple of our lots back up into the
Golf course.
into the golf course, which a lot of people love that. And Red Hawk is we played
Beautiful
last time.
course.
But doesn't forgive a lot either.
Especially when
and
you're not
then-
as bad as I am.
Yeah. And then we're going to be in we're in Purple Sage Estates, and then we have Sonoma Ranch Estates coming up. So we're
Awesome.
making a big presence in Las
Those are
Cruces.
all really good neighborhoods. I think
Exactly.
you guys will find good success out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're downplaying what builders like you guys here at Point are doing to the El Paso community. I think we're finally being able to catch up to these larger markets on the east side of Texas, like Dallas and San Antonio, where people go out and live in like San Marcos or smaller suburbs.
Yeah,
of-
30 minutes
of the
away from
central
the
hub.
city.
Yeah, and I think living in El Paso, as Adam mentioned, the affordability is becoming a bit of an issue. So most of our flexible builder partners, such as you guys, have built in areas like Socorro, like Horizon, like Santa Teresa, like Las Cruces, to provide the consumer here in town an option to still purchase a home and get a comfortable monthly payment for them and their family.
Well, that's definitely good to hear from you guys. If you have one thing to say to the El Paso consumer right now, what would it be, Cesar?
One thing specifically?
Or I mean, a couple of things. Advice. Hey, I'm an El Paso consumer, and I am looking for my first home, or I'm looking to upgrade my home. I'm just looking for a home. What is one piece of advice that you can give with all of your knowledge and experience?
One thing that I've repeated to plenty of customers is El Paso is because of our Hispanic roots, is a big family-oriented community. And your family is going to try to do the best thing for you, but sometimes their advice may not apply to you. Get with a real estate professional, get with a loan officer, and figure out what actually applies to you specifically. Because your parents' experience, your uncle's experience, your coworkers' experience is going to be completely different to yours. Don't let their negative experiences with, I had to give all this money to get into a home, jade your experience as a first-time home buyer. Come get the information. Come get it directly from the source. Don't get that second-hand information, because they might have dealt with someone that didn't have the experience, and they might have ended up having all these negative connotations, especially if your family's a little bit older and the advances in technology wasn't to their liking. They might have had some sort of experience. Take their advice for what it is, but come get it from directly from the source. You don't let them dissuade you from, I just got so-and-so rate 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago, it doesn't mean much. I mean, 2 minutes ago, things could have changed.
Exactly.
So come work with a professional, get the information directly from a source. And again, don't be shy or don't be afraid. Don't let whatever you see online or some of this stuff dissuade you from purchasing a home. I mean, if you're ready, we'll find a way to get you there.
Definitely. And if somebody is ready, where can they reach you at? What's your number? What's your handle?
Me personally,
is that what the youngsters are saying nowadays?
Yeah, the kids. We're not kids anymore, man.
Yeah.
Me personally, I could be reached out at 915-240-1376. Been the same number for 15 years. Rocky Mountain can be reached at 915-593-3111. We have 2 branches, one in Texas and one in New Mexico. Texas at 2244 Traywood, it's a corporate office. And in New Mexico at 1255 Country Club Road, right at the end of Country Club before McNutt.
Damn, you said all that without having to read
nailed
anything.
it. He did. He had that all committed to memory.
And last question, best for last. Adam,
Man.
if you had to talk to a loan officer, so I know Cesar is talking to the consumer, but a loan officer, what would be some advice that you would give him or her?
If if I'm addressing a loan
A
officer.
loan officer, some advice, whether it be about coming to Rocky, or of course come to Rocky, but
Man, if I'm addressing a loan officer in this market, one of the first things I'm going to say is hang in there. It's not going to be like this forever. We're in a tough market right now. Rates are not necessarily conducive to a lot of people wanting to jump into the market, but I would turn around and say to those consumers we were addressing earlier, stop running for the door. What interest rate are you paying on your credit card before we start getting interest rate shock? Okay. Just real quick, in terms of down payment assistance, I just pulled up one of the biggest state programs. Their qualifying income, so you can get this assistance for any family size, $106,000. Okay, in family income. So don't assume that the money's not there just because you haven't saved up enough. Don't let that be a barrier. Don't let the rates be a barrier. Prices are going to continue to rise. So make hay while the sun shines, and it's shining today. So get in the market, get with a professional, and get on contract. Get in the home, man. Get your rate locked.
awesome. Gentlemen, do you have anything else for us today?
No, thanks for
Thank you for having us, Mario. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys for coming on. I appreciate it.
Nice.